Listen closely, child of the wind. Come sit by the flame, for I have a tale the rivers still whisper, and the baobab trees remember, in a time before metal walked and machines flew, when the stars still danced to the songs of the griots. There lived a man whose name was known not in gold, but in spirit. He had no throne, no servants, and no claim to riches, only a spear carved from a lightning-struck tree, and a heart that beat in rhythm with the wild dot. And yet he married a queen, not by force, not by coin, but by fate. Now, the land of this tale was called Oroba, mighty kingdom where rivers braided the earth like sacred threads, where giraffes walked without fear, and lions sang in the deep savanna nights. The skies of Oroba turned gold at dusk and purple at dawn. Its people, proud, noble, bound by tradition and the stories of their ancestors. Its throne, worn by warriors and wise rulers, but no king had ruled for many moons now. Only Queen Nyasha, daughter of thunder, keeper of the crown. But this is not her beginning. This is the story of Jabari, the poor hunter, in the village of Kundwa. Nestled between two sacred hills and the river Lanto, lived a young man with eyes like the morning storm and skin that drank the sun. Jabari was his name, orphaned as a child. When fever took his mother and a leopard stole his father, Jabari was raised not by hands but by the forest. It taught him how to walk without sound, to read the wind like a map, speak without words to birds, beasts, and trees. He lived in a small hut of reed and clay. A mat was his bed. Smoke and salt were his treasures. And his only true companion was Kuboy, a greyhound as silent as moonlight. Jabari was a hunter, not just of game, but of balance. He never took more than he needed. He gave the first catch to the ancestors. He left food at the foot of old trees for the spirits. The villagers laughed sometimes, saying that boy chases shadows. But when famine struck and crops withered under a red sun, it was Jabari who followed an ancient map drawn in the grooves of a tortoise shell and found the hidden Yam cave of Dundu. He returned not with boasts, but with food. The elders began to nod in his direction. The children started following him on his morning walks. The chief even offered him a calabash of palm wine, an honor rarely given to one without a title. But Jabari did not seek praise. He only wished to live in harmony with the land. Now every African tale worth its salt carries signs. In the weeks that followed the famine, strange things began to stir in Kundwa. A white eagle circled Jabari's hut for 7 nights. A child was born with a voice like a drum. And on one misty morning, Jabari found a lion cub at the edge of the forest, and it did not flee from him. These were not coincidences. These were omens. The griot of the village, old Mama Adina, summoned Jabari one evening beneath the great fig tree. "Boy," she said with a smile wrapped in wrinkles, "you carry the scent of destiny. I smell it on your shadow. The spirits are watching you." Jabari bowed low. "I am no one, Mama." "And that," she whispered, "is why they love you." That night, Jabari slept with the scent of smoked herbs in his nostrils. And in his dreams, he stood in a field of golden grass. A voice neither male nor female spoke from the wind. "The lion will bow. The crown will wait, but only if your heart remains unclothed." He awoke in a sweat. Kubwa, his dog, stood staring at the door, growling low. Outside, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. And in the distance, across the hills and rivers, a queen, prepared to hear a prophecy that would change both their fates forever. Asterisk, 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 now that you've met the hunter. Sit still, child. For the queen's tale is the next drumbeat in this rhythm of fate. Asterisk, asterisk, now far from Kundwa, past the river with silver fish and the mountains that wore clouds like crowns, stood the kingdom of Oroba. Its palace rose from the earth like a mountain carved in obsidian and ivory, a fortress of tradition and memory. Guards stood like statues along the gates. The people bowed low as the queen passed, but whispered behind folded hands. For though she was loved, there was a silence. At the heart of her reign, a silence that grew louder with each passing moon. Queen Nyasha had ruled since she was 16 reigns old. Her father, the Lion King Alubeo, had died during the Red Season War. His blade was buried with him, and his daughter placed on the throne by firelight and blood oath. But though she wore the crown with wisdom and led her people with peace, there was one thing she had never done marry. Suitors had come and gone. Princes, warlords, even the high chief of the river tribes, all bearing gold, gifts, and praise. But Nyasha turned them away with grace, not because she lacked heart, but because of a dream, a voice that first came to her as a child and visited her again on the night of her coronation. That night, as rain fell heavy outside the palace walls, Nyasha had seen herself walking barefoot through a forest, guided by whispers. There, under the largest tree she'd ever known, stood a man with his back turned, a robe, no crown. Only a hunter's spear carved with symbols that glowed like fireflies. He never turned to face her, but the voice from the trees said, "Your true king will not walk through the gates. He will walk through the wild. He will not be born of palace, but of purpose." And so Nyasha waited. Years passed. The council grew restless. The kingdom began to murmur. One morning, during a gathering of the 9 elders, Counselor Bacco pounded his staff and said, "My queen, the people are weary. They need a king beside you. Someone to carry the line forward. We must summon the royal trials. Let the men of Europa prove their worth." Nyasha lifted her chin. A king cannot be chosen like a pot at market, but prophecy must bend too. "Law," said Bacco, smiling thinly. The queen's eyes, dark as storm clouds, said otherwise. But that evening, as the moon swelled to fullness, Nyasha walked alone to the ancestral chamber beneath the palace. There, beneath carvings of old rulers and whispered hymns of the Orishas, she knelt before her mother's spirit shrine. And for the first time in years, she spoke without command. "Mother," she whispered, "what if I'm wrong?" She foamed. "What if the voice I heard was just wind? What if I die without knowing him?" And the candle beside her flickered, though no wind blew. Then a sound behind her, bare feet on stone. She turned, but saw no one. Only a whisper from the air itself, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. "He walks the path already, but the thorns test him still." That night, the queen ordered the trials to begin, but in secret, she sent her royal guards to search the hills and forests for a man who bore no title, no clan symbol, no name known to nobles. A hunter, she told her most trusted servant. "He walks with animals. The trees will know him." The trials would buy her time. Time for fate to move. Time for her dream to find legs. So the drums beat out across the kingdom. Royal declarations echoed across town squares and mountain passes. A queen seeks her king. Let all men of strength, wisdom, and spirit present themselves. But the queen? She prayed not for the loudest warrior or the richest prince. She prayed for the man the trees had shown her, a man who, at that very moment, was feeding a lion cub at the edge of the forest, unaware that his footsteps were already being traced in prophecy. Asterisk, asterisk. Jabari awoke before the sun. The mist still clung low to the earth like a sleeping ghost, and the cicadas had not yet broken into their morning hymn. He stood by the river's edge, washing his face in the cold waters of Lanto. Kuboa sat nearby. Ears flicking at unseen things, today felt different. The birds flew in strange spirals above the trees. The ants formed unusual patterns in the red soil. Jabari noticed everything. He always did. After breaking his fast with roasted yams and groundnuts, he set out into the forest. Not to hunt for meat, but for answers. The dream from nights ago still lingered in his heart like a distant drumbeat. The voice, the field of golden grass, the crown in the wind, it all pointed him towards something more than daily living. And so he followed instinct deeper into the forest than he had ever dared. Hours passed, the canopy thickened. Light broke through in spears of gold and green. The scent of marula blossoms danced with the musk of old roots. Then he heard it. A cry, not of beast nor bird, but of something ... He turned toward the sound and found himself in a part of the forest untouched by human foot. The trees were older, here massive, gnarled, with faces almost formed in their bark. And beneath the largest of these trees sat a woman, old, her skin the color of ash, her eyes white as milk, her hair a storm of gray coils bound in golden rings. She was tangled in vines, her foot caught in a snare. Jabari rushed forward. "Mother, are you hurt?" The woman looked at him and smiled with cracked lips. "You came. I was beginning to think they'd chosen wrong." He hesitated, unsure. She beckoned. "Cut the vine, but do not spill blood on this ground, or the trees will never forgive you." He reached for his spear, but stopped. Instead, he bent the branch back, unwound the snare, and released her without harm. The old woman sighed in relief. "Even in this, you listen to the trees." She rose, her back straightened. Her voice deepened, not harshly, but with power. "You are the one," she said. "The hunter who sees with both eyes and heart." Jabari blinked. "Do I know you?" she said. "But I've known you since before you were born." She circled him once, then placed her hand on his forehead. Images rushed through him, flashes of palaces. Lions, drums, a queen in mourning, a golden crown split in two. Then she was gone, not walked away. Not faded, gone, as if the air had reclaimed her. He looked down where she'd stood. A single feather, white and glowing faintly, lay where her foot had touched. Jabar, I picked it up and tucked it into his pouch, though he did not know why. When he returned to his village that evening, the winds howled through the trees, and even the children stopped their games to stare. Mama Adina came to his hut. "You saw her, didn't you?" she asked. Jabari said nothing, but the silence was answer enough. "The queen will dream of you tonight," Mama Adina whispered. "And when she wakes, the world will shift." And across the kingdom, in the heart of the palace, Queen Nyasha sat bolt upright in her bed, her breath caught, her skin chilled. She had dreamed of a forest, and in it, a hunter walked toward her carrying a white feather. Asterisk, asterisk, the sun rose crimson over Aroba, as if the sky itself bled from expectation. Drums echoed from the palace towers to the hills beyond, thundering across valleys and villages like the heartbeat of destiny. It was the first day of the royal trials. From every corner of the kingdom, men came cloaked in pride, dust, and ambition. Some rode horses with manes braided in beads. Others walked cloaked in feathers and cowries. Warriors with spears of gold. Healers who spoke to bones. Sons of chiefs and cousins of kings. Each arrived with the same hunger, to win the heart hand of Queen Nyasha, but none knew her heart had already stirred for one she had not yet met. Inside the palace, Queen Nyasha stood in her ceremonial robes, deep blue like the night sky before thunder. Her crown of woven gold sat heavy on her brow, and her eyes, lined with kohl and command, scanned the courtyard where the suitors gathered. The elders stood beside her, proud and watchful. "Counselor," Bako whispered, "today begins the proving. By the end of the moon, one of them shall be king." Nyasha gave a small smile. Perhaps. The trials would test not only strength and skill, but spirit. First came the trial of stone, a challenge of endurance. Contestants were made to carry massive stones, etched with royal emblems, up the palace hill. Many boasted before they lifted. Many failed before the halfway mark. Only a handful reached the top without falling to their knees. Then came the trial of flame, a test of courage. Each man was led into the cave of Ani, where ancient fires danced along the walls and whispers of the past echoed. They were told to retrieve a relic buried within the ash. Some ran, others emerged trembling. A few returned with tokens, burned fingers, wide eyes. Queen Nyasha remained composed, but inside her spirit waited, watched, listened. None of the men felt right. Their energy was too sharp, their words too rehearsed. Their eyes lingered on her crown more than her soul. Meanwhile, far from the noise of trials and trumpets, Jabari wandered the forests beyond Kundwa, unaware his path was being whispered by leaves and wind. He no longer hunted. He only listened. Since the day he'd met the old woman beneath the sacred tree, his dreams had changed. He no longer saw animals or familiar paths, but walls of ivory, thrones of stone, and a queen's face just beyond his vision. Mama Adina watched him closely. "You are being called," she said one morning. "And you are ignoring it?" Jabari looked at her. "How can I walk toward something I don't understand?" "You've always known how," she said. "But fear wears many masks. You think it's patience, but it's fear." He was quiet. That night, he packed his satchel. Dried meat, a flask of river water, the white feather, and the walking staff carved by his father before he died. He turned to Kubwa. "We go, no farewell ceremony, no declarations, just footsteps, soft and steady. Ward Oba." And as Jabari disappeared into the morning mist, the queen awoke. Once more from a dream. This time, she saw his face. Not fully, just the eye storm-colored, and command the forest behind him. She did not tell the council. She simply whispered to her reflection, "Come quickly." Asterisk, asterisk. Jabari walked for 7 days and 7 nights. Not once did he follow a marked road. He trusted the stars, the shape of mountain shadows, the scent of rivers carried on wind. Kubwa walked beside him, silent as a shadow, ears alert to every rustle in the grass. The land grew unfamiliar as they neared Oroba. The trees stood straighter, prouder, as if watching. The birds quieted. And at night, the moon cast long fingers of light on his path, guiding his feet without speaking a word. On the 8th morning, he stood atop a ridge, looking down at the greatest city he had ever seen, Oroba. The city walls were high and wide, carved from black stone and etched with symbols of ancient gods. Towers spiraled upward like spears piercing the sky. Music floated from its heart, mixing with the scent of roasted millet and fresh flowers. For a moment, Jabari simply stood. No awe, no fear. Just quiet recognition, as if he had finally stepped into a place his soul already knew. He walked to the gates. The guards were dressed in crimson leather, with gold-threaded sashes and spears tipped in obsidian. They laughed as he approached. "Who comes to the royal gate wearing dust and silence?" One of them asked. Jabari bowed his head respectfully. "I am Jabari of Kundwa. I seek no riches, no quarrel, only understanding." The other guard snorted. "And what business does a hunter have at the palace?" Jabari reached into his pouch and pulled out the white feather. It shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The guards went quiet. One stepped back. The older of the two leaned forward slowly, eyes narrowing. "Where did you get that?" Jabari replied. "It was given to me in the forest, beneath the tree that holds memory." No more questions were asked. He was not welcomed like a prince. no trumpets, no flower-strewn path. But the gates opened all the same. He was led through the city, past bustling markets, past wide-eyed children and curious elders, past nobles who turned their noses and common folk who whispered behind cupped hands. He wore no shoes, he carried no sword, and yet he walked as if the earth had asked him to. Inside the palace, Queen Nyasha sat in the Hall of Winds, where marble pillars rose like trees, and colored glass scattered rainbows across the stone floor. The air was cool and still. She had just dismissed the latest contestant in the trial of wisdom, a proud prince who had failed to answer the elder riddle. Her heart felt heavy. The days dragged on. The trials felt hollow. She rose, ready to retreat to her private chambers, when her attendant whispered, "A stranger has arrived. A hunter from Kundwa." Nyasha paused, her pulse quickened. She turned slowly, her voice soft but firm. "Bring him." Moments later, Jabari stepped into the hall, and when their eyes met, the wind shifted. Something unseen moved between them. Time paused. The guards straightened. The servants held their breath. Even the fire in the corner hearth dimmed, as if bowing to the moment. Queen Nyasha looked at him, not his clothes, not his bare feet, but into his eyes. And she saw the dream. She saw the forest. She saw him. Asterisk, asterisk. Jabari bowed deeply. "My queen." She stepped down from her throne, crossing the marble floor with the grace of rain on leaves. She stopped before him. "Do you know why you're here?" Jabari lifted his gaze. "Not with my mind, but my heart has led me, and I have learned to trust it." Nyasha studied him, and then she smiled. For the first time in many seasons, she smiled without guard or thought. The court was silent, confused, watching. And then the queen turned to her council and said, "Let the final trial be prepared." Counselor Bako stepped forward, alarmed. "But he is not of noble blood. He carries no royal line." Nyasha raised a hand. "He carries spirit, and that is the oldest line of all." Then she turned back to Jabari. "Will you face the trial of truth?" she asked. He nodded once. "I will face whatever the path places before me." Asterisk, asterisk, the trial of truth was the oldest and most sacred of Aroba's royal tests. No man could fake his way through it. No sword, no gold, no honeyed words could help. It was said to be older than the palace itself, born not from law, but from the spirit world. It tested the soul. It revealed the hidden, and it answered only to truth. Jabari stood at the mouth of the chamber of echoes, an ancient hollow deep beneath the palace. Carved into the roots of the hill itself, it was a place few ever entered, and even fewer returned from unchanged. Queen Nyasha stood beside him, her face unreadable. Yet her eyes spoke everything. "Go with courage." Jabari gave her a small nod, then stepped inside. The door closed behind him. At first, there was only darkness. Then a slow light began to rise from beneath the ground, soft and gold, like morning mist. The walls shimmered with ancient symbols, glowing faintly. And then came the voice. It wasn't loud, nor did it belong to man or woman. It was simply ... present. Timeless, all-knowing. "Jabari, son of no crown, why have you come?" He breathed deeply. "To understand." "What is it you seek to understand?" "Myself, my place in this path, and why my spirit will not let me turn away." Silence. Then the chamber shifted. The walls stretched, bending like water. Images appeared in the air around him, visions from his past. His father, lying on a mat, sweat beading his forehead as he whispered his final lesson. "Be still before you strike. See everything, even what is hidden." His mother, eyes filled with sorrow and strength, handing him the carved staff. Then came darker images. A time when Jabari, still young and hot-blooded, let rage guide him. A wounded gazelle struck not for food, but pride. The chamber pulsed with the memory. Have you ever chosen the wrong path? Yes, Jabari answered. Why? Because I wanted to feel strong. But I confused strength with control. And now I know strength is what remains when power is stripped away. The chamber grew quiet again, and then it changed once more. Now, Jabari stood in a forest of mirrors. Each reflection showed a different version of him. A warrior draped in royal robes. A beggar, lost and broken. A boy, frightened and alone. A king. A ghost. A father. A hunter. The voice asked, "Which of these are you?" He looked at them all and then closed his eyes. "I am none of them then. Who are you?" "I am becoming." Silence, then the mirrors shattered. The chamber burst with golden light, wrapping around him like warmth after a storm. He dropped to his knees, not from weakness, but from revelation. And the voice, now gentle, whispered, "You have spoken truth. Go forward." The chamber darkened again. The door opened. Jabari stepped into the sunlight. Waiting for him at the threshold was Queen Nyasha. She looked into his eyes and knew instantly he had passed. Not because the elders told her, not because some scroll had confirmed it, but because she could feel it. He had faced himself and returned whole. The elders murmured among themselves, some impressed, some wary, some quietly afraid. Counselor Bako stepped forward, voice laced with resistance. A hunter passing the trial of truth does not make him a king. He still lacks lineage. Queen Nyasha turned to him, and her voice, though, carried the weight of thunder. "Then let me speak mine. I am daughter of Alubeo, last of the Lion Kings. I am voice of the ancestors, keeper of the throne, chosen of the Orishas. And I say lineage is what we leave behind, not only what we inherit." She took Jabari's hand. This man holds no title, but he holds truth, and that is the foundation of any crown worth wearing. The hall fell silent, and slowly, one by one, the elders bowed. Then the people, then the city. Jabari stood at the center of a history he had never dreamed to enter, and the queen, beside him, felt the last piece of the prophecy fall into place. Asterisk, asterisk. The drums of Aroba sang through the night. Word had spread like wildfire across the kingdom the queen had chosen. A hunter, not a prince. Not a nobleman. A man of the forest, barefooted and spirit-led, had passed the trial of truth and taken the queen's hand. Some rejoiced, the common folk farmers. Herdsmen, weavers danced in the courtyards. "She chose from among us," they whispered. Perhaps this will be the beginning of a new kind of rule. Others, especially those with bloodlines tangled in ancient titles, were not so pleased. In the shadows of polished halls and under the cover of night, words sharper than blades were spoken. How can she shame the throne by wedding a man of no name? Magic must be behind it. No hunter could pass the trial unaided. Remove him before the union. Quietly. And in one high tower, Counselor Bako lit incense before a shrine that was not meant for Orisha. Spirits beyond our ancestors. He muttered, "Turn the tide. Let not this hunter sit upon our throne." Meanwhile, in the heart of the palace, preparations for the royal wedding began. The seamstresses worked through the night, weaving gold thread into flowing silks. The palace painters brushed sacred murals upon the walls. Scribes inscribed blessings from the Book of Kings upon scrolls that would be burned as offerings on the wedding night. And Jabari? He could hardly sleep. He walked the palace gardens beneath the moonlight. Kubwa always at his side. The scent of blooming baobab flowers filled the air, and the stillness reminded him of the forest. But this quiet was different. He could feel it. presence. A watching as if something in the shadows resented his every breath. He turned a corner and saw her Queen Nyasha alone, standing by the moon pool, where lotus flowers bloom only at night. He joined her in silence. After a while, she spoke. "Are you afraid?" Jabari nodded. "Yes. Not of the path forward, but of what may try to stop it." She smiled faintly. "Even as queen, I have enemies in my own court. You threaten a world they believed unshakable." He turned to her. "Why choose me, then?" Her eyes didn't waver, because the throne needs someone who sees through illusion. Someone not raised by greed, but guided by rhythm. "When I saw you, it was like seeing the other half of a vision I've had since childhood." She stepped closer. "And because I dreamed of you long before we met." "Oh, nay." They stood in that moment, with the stars above and the earth beneath them too. Souls who had crossed centuries of tradition to find each other. But even love cannot stop what fate must test. That very night, as the palace slept, a figure cloaked in black slipped into the royal chambers. Jabari woke suddenly. Kubwa growled, low and lethal. A whisper of movement. A blade swung through the air. Jabari ducked, grabbed his staff, and parried the strike. The assassin was fast, but Jabari had danced with leopards. He struck the man's leg, spun, and pinned him to the floor. Guards burst in moments later, when the mask was pulled away. The face beneath it was Nona, royal cousin, one of the princes, who had failed the early trials, a man who had everything except the queen's heart. He spat on the floor. "You are not worthy. You never will be." Jabari said nothing. But Nyasha, when she arrived, said, "Worthy is not born. Worthy is revealed." She exiled the prince that very night, and the court knew this union would not be broken by steel or spite. But darker forces still watched. The incense that Counselor Bako burned continued to rise, and across the sea, in the forgotten tombs of the East, something ancient stirred at his call. Something that hated love and envied truth. Asterisk, asterisk. 3 days before the wedding, darkness crept into the kingdom, not with lightning, nor with war cries, but with silence. It began in the palace gardens. The flowers wilted overnight, despite no drought. Birds that had once sung joyously now fled. The trees. The koi in the royal pond floated motionless, their silver bellies turned to the sky. Then came the whispering wind. It slithered through the corridors of Aroba like a serpent, cold and wordless, curling around pillars and across thresholds. Servants began falling ill with no fever. Mirrors cracked on their own. Flames flickered blue before extinguishing without cause. The queen, once radiant, grew pale. She walked more slowly. Her voice, once commanding, now trembled at times. The royal healers searched her body. No wounds, no poisons. The spiritualists were summoned, but their divinations returned blank. Something had taken root beneath the skin of her spirit hand. No charm, no incantation, no offering could name it. Only one among them knew. Counselor Bako. He alone sat in his high chamber, hands inked with forbidden runes, whispering to an urn that pulsed with unnatural warmth. "Let her wither," he hissed to the shadows within. "Let her weaken. If she will not choose nobility, she shall marry no one." And the spirit inside the urn answered in silence. But its hunger was loud. Jabar. I knew something was wrong the moment Nyasha stopped meeting him beneath the moon pool. On the second night of her absence, he crept into the temple gardens, searching for the queen's handmaidens. One, in tears, told him what the others would not. She cannot rise. Her hair has begun to gray. She forgets names, even her own. Jabari didn't wait. He ran to Mama Adina's shrine. She was already waiting. For him, eyes cloudy but knowing. "You feel it, don't you?" she said as he entered. I do. Something is killing her. Not something, she said. Someone. She placed a bowl of dark water before him and sprinkled it with crushed yam leaf. Look, and Jabari did. In the reflection, he saw the palace. He saw the queen lying on her ceremonial bed, eyes closed, lips colorless. Then he saw the source, Counselor Bako, kneeling before a flickering black flame, whispering into an urn carved from the bones of forgotten kings. Jabari's breath caught. Mama Adina closed the bowl. He has called forth an ancient curse. The spirit of envy. It feeds on unions it cannot touch. Jabari clenched his fists. Then I will face it. You cannot strike it with your staff. This curse was not summoned by blade or beast, it was conjured by betrayal. She handed him a pendant carved from bone, etched with red clay. This holds a sliver of her essence. If you can find her spirit, the part trapped in the shadow, you may bring her back. But be warned to walk into the spirit realm without. Being called is to risk never returning. He nodded, I'll go. That night, Jabari sat beside the queen's bedside, holding her hand. Her skin was cool, her breath shallow. He placed the pendant on her chest and touched her forehead. Then he closed his eyes, and his spirit fell into the silence. He awoke not in the palace, but in a forest made of glass and ash. The sky was gray. The trees hummed low and sad. He walked barefoot through a land that looked like the world, but hollow voices called from the trees. Some whispered his name. Others hissed lies. She doesn't love you. You're just a hunter. Leave her and live. He walked on. Finally, beneath a twisted baobab, he saw her nightshot dressed in her wedding gown, sitting on a stone, staring into a pool that reflected nothing. He ran to her. She didn't turn. Do you know me? Ha, she said softly. I don't know anything. I'm tired. He knelt before her. Look at me. Your name is Nyasha. You are queen. You are strong. You are loved. She looked up slowly. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Then behind her rose the shadow, a figure made of smoke and ancient envy. Its eyes glowing red, its mouth twisted in laughter. You cannot save her, it hissed. You are only a man. Jabari rose. No, he said. I am a man who remembers. He clutched the pendant. It pulsed. I remember her laughter. I remember her power. I remember our walk by the moon pool. And I remember who I am because she saw it when no one else did. The spirit shrieked, but light burst from the pendant, piercing the smoke, cutting through shadow. The forest shook. The sky cracked open, and Nyasha eyes now clear took Jabari's hand. They ran. The world collapsed behind them, but they did not stop. They burst through the veil of shadow and woke back in the palace. Breathless, alive, whole, the queen sat. Up color returned to her cheeks, her hair black as night once more. The curse was broken, and in his chamber, Counselor Bako screamed as the urn shattered. And the spirit he thought he controlled devoured him instead. Asterisk Oroba had never seen a day so bright, not in 100 seasons, not since the first king raised the city from clay and song. Birds returned to the trees. Blossoms that had wilted now bloomed with twice the color. The air itself carried a freshness as if the very breath of the land had been held, and now exhaled in joy. The queen had awakened. The hunter had returned from shadow, and the wedding would proceed, but this would not be just any wedding. This would be the wedding of the winds. The elders gathered beneath the sacred canopy, spun from silk and golden thread. It stretched between 4 pillars, one carved from ebony, one from ivory, one from ironwood, and one from living stone, representing an ancient kingdom. Once lost, but now united under Oroba, the people poured into the royal square. children on their father's shoulders. Old women with tears in their eyes, dancers who painted their feet with ochre to honor the soil. Drummers began to play a rhythm older than language. And from the eastern arch, Jabari emerged. He wore not royal robes, but the ceremonial cloak of a hunter now threaded with silver bark and feathers from the white hawk, symbolizing union between forest and throne. From the western gate, Queen Nyasha appeared. Her gown flowed like water, embroidered with thousands of tiny mirrors, each one catching the sunlight, sending light dancing across the faces of her people. Between them stretched a path of petals red for courage, blue for peace, gold for destiny. When they met in the center, the winds rose, but not harsh, joyful, playful, spirits unseen danced above them. For this was not only a wedding, it was a healing, a prophecy fulfilled, a balance restored. Elder Olu, voice of the council, stepped forward. His staff tapped the stone 3 times. Then he spoke. Today, the sky witnesses. The ancestors listen. The land rejoices. Today, crown meets courage. Today, the queen marries the hunter. The ceremony was simple, but powerful. Nyasha held a calabash of honey wine and offered it to Jabari. He drank Jabari, broke open a gourd of sacred soil, and sprinkled it at her feet. She stepped into it. Then they placed their hands together over a flame that would burn for 7 days and 7 nights. Their palms bled slightly, the old tradition. 1 drop from each fell into the fire. The flame flared gold. The marriage was sealed. That night, the city did not sleep. Flutes sang under moonlight. Children reenacted the story, how the hunter found the queen, how he passed the trials, how he saved her from the spirit of envy. Elders, the once doubted, now toasted to new beginnings. Even the statues seemed to smile in the private gardens of the palace. Nyasha and Jabari stood alone, watching the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Not a single wound." "You gave up your forest." "No," he replied. Turning to her, "I brought it with me. The hunt is not over, it's only changed form. My bow now guards the people. My aim now protects our peace." She leaned into him. "The throne is steadier with you beside me. And I," he said, "have found the path I never knew I was tracking. Far beyond Aroba, in lands untouched by maps, the spirit of envy howled and the void defeated. But not destroyed, but the wind carried the story of the wedding even there, and for the first time in 1,000 years. It trembled because love born of truth is the one thing it cannot possess." Sing Sing. Seasons passed, then years. But the story of the poor hunter who married the queen became more than tale, it became legacy. Jabari, once a shadow in the forest, now sat beside Nyasha, not as a consort, but as Karula leader in spirit and heart, chosen by the people, by the ancestors, and by fate. They called him the Hunter King, and his reign changed everything. Under his rule, the palace opened its doors, not just to noblemen, but to farmers, craftspeople, singers, dreamers. The circle of advisors grew diverse. Wisdom was no longer measured by wealth, but by service. He led with simplicity, refused golden crowns, wore the same hunter's cloak to every council, traveled barefoot when visiting villages so he could feel the heartbeat of the land. And always, always, his leopard companion, Kubwa, walked beside him, older now, but never far from his king. Nyasha, radiant and bold, remained every bit the lioness queen. Together, they governed not with dominance, but with harmony. They established the Forest Accord, protecting sacred groves and rivers. They abolished bride prices and land taxes that burdened the poor. They built the School of Earth and Sky, where boys and girls learned not only letters, but storytelling, drumming, healing, and hunting with honor. and most sacred of all every 10 moons. They walked among the people, unguarded, in what became known as the Day of Touch, where anyone could approach the crown and speak freely. It was a reign of peace, but not without trials. Years into their rule, a drought struck the eastern plains. The river that once nourished 6 provinces dried to a whisper. Crops failed. Hunger crept in. The council urged war against neighboring kingdoms to seize their water reserves, but Jabari refused. "I have hunted through famine," he said. "What we need is not war, but wisdom." He journeyed himself crossing deserts, seeking the wisdom of forgotten nomads and river shamans. He returned with ancient irrigation techniques, taught the people how to dig deep wells using star maps and termite lore. The rains returned the following year, but even more powerful was what remained: knowledge. The people knew they were never alone. Their king did not command from above, he walked with them. One night, decades into their reign, Jabari and Nyasha stood again by the moon pool. Their children, 4 of them, played nearby, their laughter echoing through the garden. Nyasha turned to him, silver now streaking her braids. "You still wear that old cloak?" she teased. "It still fits," he smiled. "You never became what they expected of a king." He looked up at the stars. "I became what the land asked of me." They stood in silence, watching the reflection of moonlight ripple in the water. Then Nyasha whispered, "I had another dream." He raised an eyebrow. In it, a tree grew from our story. Its roots reached every corner of the continent. Birds nested in its branches, and the wind carried our names into futures we will never see. Jabari smiled, then let the tree grow. They passed years later. Side by side, the morning bells did not toll with sorrow. They tolled with gratitude across all of Aroba. And beyond, people gathered under trees, around fires, in temples and classrooms. Not to weep, but to tell the tale of the hunter with nothing but his spirit, of the queen with everything but love, of how they found each other not in riches, but in truth. And so, the story was passed down from grandmother to child, from griot to listener, from generation to generation. The tale of Jabari and Nyasha, the poor hunter who married the queen, the king who remembered the forest, the queen who danced with fire, and the love that even darkness could not break. Asterisk, asterisk, thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment Queen so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye.